Hello, everyone, and welcome to Overexposed, a BWRM podcast where we delve into the ins and outs of running a real estate photography and videography business. My name's Dave Temple.
And my name is Jackie Kirk. Today's member, you may remember from episode 1, he started 3 real estate photography businesses from scratch in 3 different states. He loves chocolate milkshakes, cats, football, and disagreeing with people.
No, I don't.
Yes. Today, Dave and I will be talking about Dave. But today is not about his life story and how he got to be here. It's an analytical look at what he's learned along the way. So, Dave, you and I are very different, and we've actually had that professionally proven. We recently did a behavior and personality assessment, and the results came back that I'm a talker, which obviously was a huge surprise. Can you tell our listeners what you were categorized as?
Yes, I was categorized as an analytical. It actually sounds like we've been to therapy or something, but it was done in a professional sense at a conference. So
it has been like therapy, to be honest. I think, it's something I'd recommend anyone working with people, should do. It really does help you understand.
It does.
The other person, and it's helped us. I think. Look at us, we're on a podcast together. Who would have thought?
I know exactly. So analytical, I mean, it wasn't a massive surprise to me. It was really obvious when I looked at the various options that you could be. Obviously, as anyone who's watched or listened to their first podcast knows, I was in an IT background for many years. That obviously appealed to me for a reason, analysing code, analysing ways of flows of programs and things like that. So that's how my brain works, and I don't think there's a way of changing that.
So explain to me in a kind of working context and a building a business context, what are the strengths and weaknesses of someone who's an analytical?
I don't know whether you could call it strengths and weaknesses, because obviously it depends what you do with your superpowers. But I can tell you that I would think analyticals are probably more introvert than extrovert. So more about looking at data, looking at information, working things out. I think that's why I would imagine a lot of them are attracted to IT work, because you can sit down, essentially not talk to anybody all day and work out puzzles, really. So working out things, calculating how things work, even people analysing, what are their motivations, what do they need from a business, what do they need from a service provider, those kind of things. But on the other side, I personally, and I would imagine a lot of analyticals, find actually knocking on doors and talking to people very difficult, which is not ideal when you're in a business where you have to knock on doors and ask people for business.
Yeah, it's really interesting that this is where you've landed, and we do go into it a bit in podcast number 1, which is just how someone who doesn't like knocking on doors and doing that sort of thing has found themselves having started 3 businesses doing exactly that, and done it successfully too. So tell me a little bit about that. Like I said, we've covered that in a fair bit of detail before, but just to summarize, you started 3 businesses in 3 different states. Business number 1, you grew to being how busy?
In the particular group we were in at the time, I think I was number 1 or number 2 in the group for a while. It's a long time ago now. It's probably 10 years ago now, but I mean, I would have been doing 80 jobs a month, something like that, so about 20 a week. Just going back slightly as well, I think the reason it sounds like an odd thing to choose to do when you know that you have to go out and knock on doors and talk to people to get work. I don't think I actually thought about that when I started. That's probably why I decided to do it. If someone had said to me, you have to knock on doors and go and sell yourself, sounds like an obvious thing to know. But I honestly didn't think about it at all. I was thinking about the photography, about seeing houses, wasn't thinking about selling myself. And I think that's something we see with people who come on board with us as well, that many of them don't realise that that's how you get work, right? You've got to go build relationships and talk to people. So first business got to around probably 80 jobs a month within a space of 2 years. Was working with a lot of really good real estate agents in the area I was in.
This was in New South Wales?
This was in New South Wales in the Hills District. Sold that and moved down to Mornington in Victoria and started all right from the beginning again with a completely empty area and other photographers to manage. And over 10 years, built that up to be, a really good sized business with contractors on board and plenty of agents, using us regularly. So, and again, maybe 100, 120 jobs a month, something like that on average.
Right. And so you sold business number one, which is a huge accolade, I think. It's something, again, when people start out, they don't really think of that element of it, of the fact that you're building an asset that you just think I'm going to create work for myself. But to then have something that someone else will pay you to take over is just mind blowing. It's so cool. So you sold business number one, moved to Victoria and started from scratch with no connections, no agencies in the area. And again, went knocking on doors, built up that business to 120 jobs a month. And then you sold that business. And again, amazing. What's the process like selling a business?
Well, I think the first time I sold the business was before BWRM. And I think it's fair to say that was more luck than judgment in terms of selling it. Basically bumped into a guy out of the blue. I think I'd lost a key for the first time ever on a job. And so didn't do the job at the time I was supposed to. The agency sorted out another key for me, went to the job at a time I wasn't supposed to go there because now I'd got the key, bumped into the postman who stopped me and said, "What are you doing? I'm interested in photography." And essentially sold it to him, right? So I shouldn't have.
Then and there.
Yeah, it was completely random. Like, shouldn't have been there at the time because if I hadn't lost the key, then I wouldn't have been there. And obviously would never have generally bumped into the guy. Anyway, so that was more luck than judgment. And I think I realised at the time that it's a very niche business, this. And so if you think of the things that people have got to be interested in, even to want to do this job, they have to be interested in houses, in running their own business, in photography. They've got to have certain skills. I think I put that one down to more luck than judgment. I think when I sold in Victoria, we were under BWRM. It was much more structured. And I think the BWRM businesses are much easier to sell because you can come into it. You've got all of the information for how you're supposed to do the job. You've got the big machine behind you that helps you deal with all processing and all those things. So, yeah, first one, luck. Second one, BWRM and a bit of judgment, I think, in terms of sales.
Okay. And now you're in Queensland, again, somewhere where you have no connections and you're starting from scratch again.
Yes.
You just really like starting businesses.
Actually, I do like the fear is probably the wrong word, but I suppose the adrenaline and it comes back to that analytical thing, right? What have I got to do? It's a puzzle to fix. I've really put myself in a difficult situation. How do I get out of it? That's the bit I enjoy. Whereas the maintenance part of a business, when everything's running smoothly and you've got relationships with people, and that's less of a puzzle to solve. So I probably do like starting businesses more than the maintenance side. But it's personal reasons that we've moved states a few times.
You're in witness protection.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Disagree with the wrong person and off you go, different state.
I think this is kind of, to our listeners, this is why we've got Dave back. I think when you start a business, it's extremely challenging starting a business in this industry. There's all sorts of things you have to learn from the photography skills, or you may come in with those skills and need to learn the sales skills. There's resilience, there's competition. It is challenging, and we do tell that to everyone, that it's not easy. You're not just going to be walking in and having people fall in love with you. You have to work really hard. And a lot of people that come to us have got some of those skills. But Dave, when you started right at the beginning, you didn't know how to take a photograph. You didn't know anyone in the country, really. You weren't a salesman. And not only that, you didn't like the idea of selling. So you didn't have any of the skills. You weren't the kind of natural personality that tends to succeed in this. Yet you've done it, 2 going on 3 times, to the point where someone else wanted to buy that business from you. And I just think that's the thing. That's what I want to talk to you about, because there are people joining us that already have more going for them in terms of skill and inclination and ability than you had when you started. And yeah, I just think it's quite inspirational that you managed to learn those things and do those things and get to where you are today. And that's kind of what I really want to delve into today. The other thing is, not only have you not had the skills and et cetera, I don't need to harp on about like how crap you were to start with. You've also done it in different territories, and you've gone into places of competition, you've gone into places where people don't see the point in paying for photography. You've faced every challenge and you have replicated the same thing no matter where you've gone, because that's another thing that we get, like, as something people struggle with. They say, well, my territory is really difficult where I'm working. They don't want to pay for photography, or there's already too many photographers, or whatever it is. Every area comes with challenges. But I think what you've proven is that you can do it wherever you go, because you've done it in the Hills District, you've done it on the Mornington Peninsula, and now you're doing it in Maroochydore.
I think it ties into what you just said, right? So if I'd have started on day one, unskilled as a photographer, I had some basic training, but I mean, it was very cursory. If I'd said, right, in order to succeed here, I need to be exactly like Jackie, I'd have been gone years ago. Because no matter what I do, I can't be a talker. I'm an analytical. So what I've done, I think, is I've used the skills that I have got to find out what my situation is, find out what my weaknesses are, and figure out what I need to do there, which is puzzle solving, which is what I do, right? So, way back in the day, I was wondering why, way back when I was in the Hills District, why don't my photos look as good as the next guy? And I figured it out because it's technical and it's puzzle solving and et cetera, et cetera. So then I've nailed how to take a better photo. Not as good as now, but, I've improved. I'm always self-critical because, again, that's how my brain works. What could I have done better? When I'm listening to agents, I'm good at listening because I'm analytical rather than the talker. So I'm listening to what they're saying to vendors. Maybe they're talking in another room and saying, for me, the strength of the house is the kitchen, and I can reflect that back to them. I think the strength of the house is the kitchen. Let's do 2 shots. So those are my strengths, right? So if I'd have tried to be you or tried to be similar to you, I just would have failed. But I've used the skills that I have got to get where I have, really. And yeah, I think that's all you can do.
Yeah. So taking it back now you're onto your third business. And when did you move to Queensland?
So that would be November 2021. So 18 months ago? Yeah.
Okay. So and whereabouts are you? Maroochydore, is that right?
We are in the Sunshine Coast, so our business runs from Glasshouse Mountains up to Maroochydore, yeah.
Okay, cool. And how's it going 18 months in?
Yeah, it's going well. We're not as busy as we want to be because we're only 18 months in, but we've got some good relationships with some really good agents. We're starting to find the people that we want to work with and people that, work the way we want to work, which is always a tricky step to get past. Starting to find really good agents as well, because again, when you move to a new area and nobody knows you, you're not going to get to those top agents straight away. And starting to get people call us, which is exactly where you want to be.
Yeah, definitely. And so recently you spoke to me about something we call the stages of business development. This is something that you came up with, so credit to you in your analytical mind. Can you tell me what led you to defining the stages of business development?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing that came to my mind is once you've been running a business for a little while, you forget how difficult it is to start. And obviously, I'm in the position where, because I've started essentially 3 times and started again twice in completely different areas, things occur to me that may not occur to people who've been running a business solidly for 5, 6, 7 years and haven't done that. And one of the first things that's a real contrast when you start again is, imagine you've been in Victoria, for example, you've been there 10 years, agents by sight, they know you by sight. Even if they don't use you, they know who you are, they're aware of the brand, they're aware of your work. You're getting people calling you all the time. And then you go to an area where nobody knows who you are and nobody's going to call you and no one cares. That's a real, I always liken it to sort of coming outside of, being famous in Big Brother. You're famous in you're famous in Big Brother, and then you move to another town or whatever, and no one knows who you are, and it must be a real shock.
Okay.
I was famous, so I think that was the first sort of thing that tweaked my brain, and I thought, hang on, this is a thing, right? This is, I suppose, what people who are starting right from the beginning, who don't have that experience, will experience. They're very excited about their new business. They've got their business cards, they've got their price list printed, and they're very excited. This is the biggest thing in their world at the moment. Now they're a photographer, now they're a real estate photographer, now they're a business owner, and nobody knows. And so now what? What do you do?
Do you think that's the benefit of understanding the phases? And we'll get into the phases shortly. But just the benefit of understanding the phases is that you don't feel like you're making a mistake. You don't feel like you're failing. You just understand you're in phase one. That it's not a go in and win straight away, that it takes time and that it's a progression.
Yeah, and I think that's the benefit of my experience now that I've done this. I'm doing it for the third time. The great thing, although it's difficult to step back from a stable business that's earning you money and providing you work and all the rest of it, the benefit is I know that if I do all the right things and I do all the right steps, I will get there. It doesn't matter who the competition is. I mean, obviously there's different competition everywhere, but it doesn't matter. If I do all the right things and I build the right relationships and I provide quality product for a fair price, I will get work. It's just a matter of time. I think that's what Lucas said in his podcast. It's about staying in the game long enough to succeed. That's all it is. This is why I came up with the phases of business thing, because my concern was that as a new business owner, not knowing what the steps were and not knowing what your expectations should be, you might be 3 months in and start to panic. Oh my God, I must be doing something wrong. Whereas as long as you follow the steps and you understand the expectations, you will get to the point where you succeed.
Yeah. So let's talk about what these distinct phases of marketing are. Dave, what's phase one?
Right. So phase one is when you've just started your business, and you can summarize this as you've got no brand awareness unless you're in an area where there's a BWRM person near you. But obviously Australia is a big country, so that won't always be the case. So no brand awareness. You've got no relationships with agents. You've got no loyalty with agents. You may or may not have any sales experience, and nobody's going to phone you. So you're very excited. You've got a brand new business cards, shiny new computer, and nothing's going to happen. That's day one. So my thought was, okay, if that's your position, and it sounds quite bleak, nobody knows you, no relationships, no loyalty, no sales experience, what do you do from there? Well, you just change those things, right? So if you've got no sales experience, well, there's two ways of fixing that. You either do a sales course or you go and get sales experience by trying it and seeing what happens, right? So the more you go into agencies, the more experience you're going to get. It's great to go on sales courses, and some of them can really help. We offer one that's really helpful. But knocking on doors is going to give you huge experience. And within that, the more you speak to people, the more relationships you're going to build, because you're going to be nice to people. You're going to introduce yourself. They're going to hopefully remember you. And that builds brand awareness, because you're going to leave your marketing documents, you're going to leave your business cards. So at this stage, your expectations should not be, I'm going to walk into an agency and people are just going to give me work. They should be just about improving your position. How do I improve my brand awareness? How do I get relationships? How do I build up my sales experience? And that's really it. If you get work in this phase, great, take it. This is where you start from.
Okay. And then that takes you to phase two. What's phase two?
Phase two is where you've got some brand awareness. So people are vaguely aware that there's a company called BW something or other, maybe BMW or WBM or whatever it is. They're vaguely aware of the business. You've got some relationships with admins or agents. They'll recognize you when you go into the office, or, they heard someone mention you or something or other. They're vaguely aware of some overly tall English bloke hanging around. You've got weak loyalty with some agents that have used you. Maybe you've done a freebie for someone and maybe they'll give you a call next time. But, you don't have that long-term loyalty. You can't expect them to call you all the time. You've built up some sales experience at this point. Either you've done the course or you've been knocking on doors and you've realized that, what you should be doing. You've been following the processes that BWRM lays out. And those people that you have picked up, will hopefully be phoning you. So those guys that have, taken a freebie off you or seen your work and want to use you again will call you. What you're not getting at that stage is things like referrals. Essentially, you can't sit back and wait at that point. You should still be pushing and trying to get more work.
I suppose you also got weak loyalty. So, you're at the point where one slip up, one day where you make a mistake, you could lose that little work that you've got. So you really need to be at the top of your game. You need to be working hard to improve and just continuing to work really hard on those relationships and build loyalty.
Exactly. And look, it's a weak loyalty in respect of, let's say you've done one job for an agent or maybe 2 or 3 jobs for an agent in an agency. At this point, if that agent moves from that agency to another agency, maybe they'll call you next time, but they've only used you 3 times. If the new agency uses a different photographer, are they going to rock the boat just for you? Probably not at this point. Your business is in very early days and you can't rely on repeat business. So, and the other thing is, of course, there's a reason that you've picked up business at this point. Maybe it was an opportunity. Maybe, the other photographer let them down, or maybe it was a price-based issue, or maybe a vendor was upset and you just happened to be there. It's probably, with your sales experience and the lack of being known in the area, it's more likely to be, good luck that got you the business than someone knowing who you are and knowing that you're good. So that's why it's important to just keep knocking on doors and broaden your customer base and keep going.
And so then that takes us on to phase 3. What's phase 3?
So phase 3 is where you've got good brand awareness. People know who you are. They've seen your brochures. They've got your business card. You're hopefully in their phone. You've got good relationships with the agents that you're with. You've got some loyalty with those. So you can't expect them to keep using you because maybe you've only been around a year and a half. This is where I am now. I've got some really good agents that I really enjoy working with. I would expect them to call me or to try and get me into a new agency if they moved. I have solid sales experience, and at this point you'd want, some pretty good sales experience and to be able to answer any questions that people come up with. You would expect clients to be calling you regularly, and hopefully you'll get to the stage at this point where you start to get referrals. So, Bob in the office has been using you for the last 6 months, and a new guy has started, and Bob says, "Oh, you should use Dave. He's great. He's the man." That's the point where your business generally starts to take off and grow on its own. Doesn't mean that you stop marketing, but this is the point where you can start to think, right, now I've got a business. I don't think we're going to talk about it in this episode, but at this point, this is where our route to 350 kicks in, and this is where you want to be.
Okay, so this is sort of the tipping point, isn't it? This is where you've really been, this is the moment you've been working for. It's goal number 1 of, I have a sustainable business. I have enough money coming in that I'm paying my bills. I have enough clients that I'm doing work consistently. Do you start to think about growing your team at this point and contractors, or does that kind of come down to how much work you're doing?
I think it depends on how much work you're doing, but also it depends on what time of the year you start to hit this point. What happens a lot of the time is that we see people, because you're now starting to get referrals, the growth is almost out of your control. So whereas before you were only growing your business if you're knocking on doors and making those sales calls and really trying to get work, because you're now going to start to get referrals and you start to get a little bit of agent migration where they move to a new agency and still want you in there. Now it just takes off. So you have to think about growing your team at least at this point. How big do you want to be? Can you cope with the work? And obviously bearing in mind that it is slightly seasonal, in that spring is obviously a lot busier than other times. You need to at least consider putting things in place that you can cope with the extra work.
Makes sense. So you've reached this goal then of, okay, sustainable business, people are calling me, I've got jobs coming in every week. And just as an aside, God, that feels good. It really is. Like, I've done it twice and it's just like people start to ring you and it's just consistent and your calendar's looking fairly, busy. It's a really good feeling. For those of you that are close to that, really hang in there. It is worth it.
When someone first calls you out of the blue, brand new number, and says, "I'm XYZ from this agency and John said I should call you." Oh my God, best thing ever.
Oh my God. Yeah. Or we saw this video you did, or it's it takes it right back to the fulfillment that you get from running your own business, where it is so much harder because it's personal. Everything you do is down to you. You're only going to grow if you do the things. You've got no one else to blame if you're really honest with yourself. But then that also means that when you get that work, you've got no one else to blame except yourself. So it's such a wonderful, rewarding feeling to go, I put in this, I did this, I built this. They're coming to me because I did the things. Like, it is personal when it's your business, and those wins are so satisfying. They don't get old. So then, Dave, your next phase is phase 4, and that's kind of your next goal then. What's phase 4?
So phase 4 is where you've got strong brand awareness. So everybody knows BWRM. Whether they use you or not is a different thing, but they're aware of you. You've got strong relationships with the agency you're dealing with, strong loyalty. So if they move to a new agency, they're saying, nah, I don't want to use your guy. I want to use Dave. You've got excellent sales experience, either, again, through courses or through, knocking on doors. Your clients will call you and you'll get regular referrals from new agencies. So at this point, you will expect, or I would expect, that if you have one agent who's been using you for a while go to a new agency where there's 5 or 6 other agents that don't use you, you would want to think that person is going to get you in there for a sales presentation, or word of mouth is going to spread in that agency, and your expectation should be that you're going to get 2 or 3 agents in our office. That's where you want to be, because, as I said, the business grows on its own at that point, and it also means that you can, depending on how you want to build your business, it means that you can start to build around high value jobs or high value agents or those kind of things. So that's where you want to be.
And I guess this is where people like Stefan, who was in our podcast 2 podcasts ago, maybe our last podcast, they're really good to talk to and listen to, because they're in that phase where it's not really about trying to win new clients. They are trying to grow still, so they're trying to maintain that market share or grow it. But really, the focus is on those relationships. So it's on 2 things. It's on maintaining and improving your client relationships, because it's really, really easy to get complacent at this stage, whereas in phase 1, 2, and 3, you're so focused on giving them everything they need, and you've got the time to do it because you're not that busy. You get to phase 4 and you've got a few clients and you're busy and you're juggling a lot of balls. It's really easy to take your clients for granted at this stage, and really easy to lose them. It is a phase where I think, there's a huge risk of losing clients if you don't give them what they need. So booking in regular catch-ups with them, improving your service, making sure your customer service is spot on, making sure you're maintaining your energy on site and the joy and excitement that you have way back in phase 1, that you still have that. Really, really important with those relationships. And I think the other side of it is also learning to manage your time and bringing in the support systems that will help you. Virtual assistants is something we use regularly at BWRM. I've got a virtual assistant and she's amazing, changed my life. But it means that you're still as responsive, if not more responsive, as you were on day 1, growing your team of contractors so that you have the same capacity that you had or more when your clients first started using you, and really just bringing in all of those systems to help you continue to do the things that won you that work in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. I think the loyalty thing is a double-edged sword. So it's great to have loyalty from agents, but I think at the point where you have strong loyalty, if they do decide to go off and use someone else because of some horrendous, issue that's occurred, it's very difficult to get, it feels like a relationship has been broken at that point. So you really want to make sure that you don't take those things for granted.
Yeah, exactly. And I think people think you're going to build loyalty through good service. You are, but actually where I've built loyalty is when things have gone wrong. That's been the best opportunity, because things are going to go wrong. You can just guarantee it. There's a lot of moving parts. It's the nature of the industry. There's so many things that are in and out of your control that can happen. But where your agents are going to see you rise is when you fix it, when you move heaven and earth to be there and to sort it out. And, I've had all sorts of, I had a shoot where I smashed my camera on the first shot and it fell off the tripod. Then I lost the SD card from the Twilight shoot. It found it in the washing machine like a few years later. Every single thing on a very stressful job with very stressed owners went wrong. But I fixed it. I reshot it. I made it smooth and easy for the agent. And this was like 5 years ago, and I'm shooting the agent's own house next week that he's selling. So, yeah, I just think fixing those problems and rising and showing how much you value the relationship. Sometimes something going wrong that you can fix is the best thing that can happen to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So those are the phases, really. So just to kind of recap them, phase 1, you've got no brand awareness, no relationships, no loyalty, no sales experience, and nobody wants to talk to you. Phase 2, some brand awareness, some relationships, weak loyalty, some sales experience, and clients will phone you. Phase 3, good brand awareness, good relationships, some loyalty, some solid experience, and clients will call you and just don't get referrals. And then phase 4, you're really going, you've got strong brand awareness. If you walk into an office, they know you, strong relationships, strong loyalty, excellent sales experience, and clients will call you and you're getting regular referrals. And really, you're doing the same things from phase 1 to phase 4 to get there. It just takes time and consistency and following the steps.
I think the beauty of laying it out like this, in my opinion anyway, is that once you know this, if you're on phase 1 and you realise that you've got no one knows who you are, no one's going to call you. I mean, for me, that's the eye opener. No one's going to call you. Well, that's okay. So now what? And as an analytical, it's like, okay, well, I don't want to go into an office, but it's the only way out of this. So that's my solution. And if you know that phase 2 is that you're going to get to a stage where people are going to be aware of your brand, you're going to have relationships, and clients will phone you. Well, there's only one way to get to that stage. You need to make them aware of your brand, and you need to build relationships. So that should be your focus. And, again, when you're at stage 2 and you want to get to stage 3, you just know what you have to do.
Yeah, you just do the things.
Yep, you just do the things.
It's like, did you hear that story? There was a story about a kid that said to their dad, like, I want to be an astronaut. How do I be an astronaut? And that says, well, you've got to go to uni and you've got to pass the exams, and then you've got to get a job at NASA and learn how to fly a spaceship. And the kid was like, oh, go to uni, pass exams, get to NASA, fly a spaceship. That's only 4 things. I can do 4 things. When you put aside the fear and the self-doubt and the discomfort, I should say, it really is just specific things that you have to do, and you keep doing them, you take those opportunities and you nail it, and you'll get there.
Yeah, it's like the old thing similar to your NASA thing about, I think it's 20 steps from 1 pence to 1 million pounds. And literally all you have to do, if you've got 1 pence, is get 2 pence. That's literally it, right? You just keep doubling until you get there. So, same thing. You don't get anywhere by sitting where you are. And bringing it back to, the way that you said at the start, essentially, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but essentially, Dave, you're the worst person to be doing this job.
That is the message I was trying to give our listeners. Listen up, people. If Dave can do it, he doesn't have the skills, or didn't. He has the skills now. I'll give him that. I taught him. He didn't have the skills. He didn't really have the classic behavior personality that normally does this. And he's done it now like 3 times. So honestly, and in 3 different places. So if he could do it, I'm pretty sure you can do it.
All it is using the skills you do have and knocking on doors. There's no substitute for it. It's literally all it is.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dave. Hopefully breaking down those phases helped anyone listening who's maybe stuck on one of the phases. I think there's bits that apply to everyone, no matter what stage of business you're at. But hopefully it just kind of, for people who are just starting out, just makes the roadmap a little bit clearer and you feel a bit motivated. And always reach out if you have any questions for us. And thanks for listening. And thanks, Dave, for coming onto your own podcast and talking about yourself.
Anytime at all.
See you guys.